everyone, and welcome back. Today we are starting with a bowl of peeled cleaned carrots, and again I have my box grater, but that's only because it's got these sides that do slices. You can also obviously cut these up by hand. Today we are going to blanch and freeze our carrots in slices or chunks or however you would use them for a side dish or in an everyday meal. So I'm going to start off here, trim my carrot, and I'm just going to use this because it cuts them up quickly for me. You can work however you like. Thin pieces. Okay, so and I will come back with you when my carrots are all chopped up. So where are we now? Here I have my sink that I've washed out, and it's filled with water and ice, and right beside it another sink also washed out with a colander. And then finally, over here we have my bowl of cut carrots and a boiling pot of water. Now it's really critical that the water be boiling. 212 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature of boiling water, and it's really important that we actually hit that temperature, both for food safety and because once we can get the carrots up to that temperature, there's an enzyme inside them that's what causes them to continue to ripen, which is why they continue getting bad. And so in order to stop that ripening process, that enzyme has to hit 212 degrees to be deactivated. So with my rapidly boiling water, I'm just going to take handfuls of carrots. Be careful, it's hot. So I'm going to put in about 3 handfuls. And as soon as it comes up to a boil, I'm going to time it for 2.5 minutes. And so you'll notice that's dropped the temperature of the water. I could have gone a little lighter on carrots, it's true. Now, we are going to reuse the water here, so we're not going to have to boil a pot of water for every batch of carrots, because obviously then we would, this would take all night. I'm going to recommend that you reuse the water a bunch of times and then save it. That water in and of itself is actually carrot broth. So you could use it as it is, dump a little in your smoothie. It's got a lot of nutrition in it. Save it up. I like to cook things like rice in the broths. Or if straight carrot broth isn't your preference, you can add in a little bit of extra vegetables like the tops of celery or some onion, just whatever you happen to have lying around, and it can be scraps. So if you're breaking off the tops and tips of green beans, you can use that. It doesn't have to be the best stuff for eating. And so you can throw that in, simmer it down for another half hour to an hour and get a really good flavor. Or if you find that that's too much water for you and you don't want to save all of that, you can actually simmer it down and reduce it and let it concentrate, and you will get a fuller, more rich flavor. You can cool it down and freeze it. Then you have frozen stock that's homemade. You know where it came from, you know what's in it, and it was essentially free as a byproduct of preserving these carrots. And so here you can see that we're just coming back up to the simmer on the carrots. So I'm going to ask the timer, and because I put mine a little bit thicker, I'm going to ask the timer for 2.5 minutes. Okay, Google, can you set a timer for 2.5 minutes for me, please?
2 minutes and 30 seconds. Starting now.
Okay, so those are going to cook for 2.5 minutes. And then I happen to have a slotted spoon, so I'm going to use that to fish out my carrots. I'm going to fish them out, dump them into that ice water, let them cool down for a good 30 seconds, and then I am going to strain them into the colander and just let them cool off, and I will come back when I have cooked up and blanched all of my carrots. So this process is called blanching. It's the act of partially cooking and heating it enough to deactivate the enzyme that causes ripening and kill any bacteria that might be on the surface, extending the shelf life by up to a year frozen. So we are going to freeze this. And it's really important that you do dump it in the ice water afterwards. If you run out of ice, keep refreshing it with as much cold water as you can. That's going to preserve the brightness and the flavor in the carrot. You'll get a better result if you dump it into the ice water than if you were to just say throw it into the freezer hot, or just let it sit in the colander and drain that way. So I will be back with you as soon as I am done cooking all of my carrots. Okay, so as you see, there's some foam that's developed on the top. That's normal. When I take my carrots out, I'm actually going to skim off that foam because I'm going to save my water. I'm going to reduce it probably over the next 2 to 3 hours. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to use that as the water in the recipe for the pancakes I'm going to make. I'm just going to use one of those, like, Aunt Jemima type boxes. But instead of where it calls for water, I'm going to use this carrot broth. Before I go to bed tonight, I am going to throw a good size handful of raisins in there, and then I'm going to let it cool in my fridge overnight so that the raisins are plump. And then when I throw it into my pancake mix, I am going to filter up the raisins while I mix the batter and then toss them in at the end. And I'm going to add a good handful of cinnamon. I'm thinking probably some nutmeg tomorrow morning. We'll see what's in the cupboard. But I'm aiming for a carrot cake type flavor. Because I figure that and a little bit of syrup, and it'll make a very nice carrot cake pancake for the morning, so that we still get the nutrition out of that water. And it'll taste like, there's a lot of good flavor in that. They taste like nice fresh carrots in that, and so I'm just going to concentrate it down and use it to flavor my pancake batter. Now as soon as Google goes off here, we'll be straining out this last batch of carrots. And you can see that foam's really come down. It'll be really easy to grab with a spoon so that I can just clean that out. That's the scum. It's generally considered to contain any impurities. It's going to have some bits of cooked carrot. It'll all just get a cleaner, better flavor out of the broth when I reduce it if I remove that scum now. And if any reforms while I'm making the broth, I'll remove that as well. Same with if there's anything in a layer on the top in the morning where the broth has formed a skin of any type, I'll remove that as well. If it was a meat-based broth, that would be all of the fat on the top, so I may not necessarily want to remove it all unless I wanted a clear broth. The fat will contain a lot of the flavor, but for the purposes of this vegetable broth, there's no fat in here, so I want to remove anything that might be considered an impurity or contaminant. That's just my preference. We should be ready anytime now. Okay, Google, how much time is left on my timer?
It looks like you don't have any timers set at the moment.
Okay, I forgot the timer. That happens. So these are definitely gone 2.5 minutes now. So I'm just going to scoop them out. I'm using a bowl just to transfer them. And I'm just going to strain out all my carrots. And you'll see they're definitely not cooked. They're still quite firm. But they're not cooked either. They're what's called parboiled, and this is the magic that allows us to preserve them longer in the freezer and gives them a better texture frozen than they would have if we just chucked them in the state that they were. and this will be good in the freezer up to a year. You could freeze them by putting some parchment paper down. I'm just going to turn this down now to a simmer. You could freeze them by turning some parchment paper down and on a cookie sheet, and then with that you would put them in a single layer, freeze them, and that would be called individually quick frozen, because when they froze they would be still in single pieces. You'd be able to break them up and use as many or as little carrots as you needed. So here we have them. I'm just going to strain them out of this water over into here. And you see, by shocking them in the cold water, you preserve the color and the flavor. And it helps improve the texture as well, because you stop the cooking process instantly so they don't overcook. This gives you some time and some space to be able to cook them when you're ready to serve them. They're not fully done. They obviously will go a little faster than a fresh carrot, but that's not a bad thing come dinner time. So just strain all these out. Now, for my purposes, I'm not going to throw them onto a parchment sheet on cookie sheets. I just don't have the space in my freezer with this number of carrots. So what I'm going to do, after I give my hands a little rinse, is once again I'm going to pull out my sandwich bags. Now I happen to know that about a sandwich bag is enough for me and my daughter. Some leftovers because she loves carrots. I'm just going to dig them up and fill them about yay full, just to get a nice serving size. And again, flatten them out, push out as much air as you can. This is going to be a little harder with this shape. And we're going to double bag that with another baggie before I put that in the freezer. And that is the entirety of blanching and preserving vegetables to freeze. This process works for most solid vegetables, so not like a tomato or a cucumber, something that's very watery that wouldn't do well in the freezer, but broccoli, cauliflower, carrots, beans, peas, all of that you can blanch and throw them into your freezer. How long you blanch is just going to depend on the size of the vegetable. So something very small like a pea, you blanch closer to 30 seconds, and something big like a nice hard carrot, you're going to go 2 or 3 minutes. The idea is, of course, to get it heated all the way through and deactivate those enzymes that cause the ripening to continue. So, with that, I now have probably about 6 meal-sized portions of carrots that are ready for my freezer.